At his birthday dinner, surrounded by his friends and family, my boyfriend stood up and announced we were breaking up and that I should be grateful he lowered his standards to date me at all. Then I found out everything, his job, his money, his future plans, was a complete lie. And now, somehow, I'm the one who got invited to his family's reunion. You know that feeling when you walk into a room and everyone stops talking? That moment when your brain tells you something is very, very wrong before you even sit down? That's how I knew. Before the waiter even handed me a menu, before the bread basket hit the table, before the first fake smile was aimed in my direction, I knew this night was going to destroy me. But what I didn't know was that my boyfriend, scratched that, ex-boyfriend, hadn't just planned to dump me. He'd been faking almost everything about his life for 2 years. And when he did it, he made it a performance, right in front of his coworkers, his parents, and me. And the real kicker? I still don't even know his real last name. Yeah. Welcome to my nightmare. So here's where it starts. I'm Jess, 27, part-time graphic designer, full-time people pleaser. I've never been the girl who gets swept up in grand romantic gestures. I roll my eyes at Hallmark movies and cry at Super Bowl ads instead of love stories. But when I met Connor at a networking event 2 years ago, he wasn't trying to sweep me off my feet. He was just funny, grounded, charming in a non-pushy way. He said he was a junior partner at a mid-size marketing agency. Said he just got promoted. Drove a sleek but not flashy Audi. Wore those clean, well-fitted button-downs that scream, "I have my life together." My friends were impressed. My mom was obsessed. And I fell. Hard. The thing is, Connor always made me feel like the lucky one. Like I was dating up. He'd say stuff like, "You're too good for me," but in this sheepish, humble brag kind of way. Like I had to earn my spot beside him. And I believed him. I'd bend over backwards to prove I was worthy. I upgraded my wardrobe. I learned to drink whiskey neat. I even started listening to podcasts about marketing just to keep up with his stories, which, by the way, I now realize were completely made up. Fast forward to last weekend, his 30th birthday dinner. He invited me to this insanely nice steakhouse downtown, the kind of place with gold-rimmed menus and waiters who treat you like you're royalty. I thought it was a celebration. It was an ambush. He showed up in a tailored navy suit and greeted everyone like a politician at a fundraiser. I showed up 10 minutes early only to realize he'd already been there for 20, entertaining a table of 12, coworkers, family, even his boss apparently. And me, the girlfriend of 2 years, no seat saved. I stood awkwardly by the host stand until someone shuffled over and added a chair to the end of the table, like an afterthought. Red flag? More like a blaring siren. But I smiled, brushed it off, and squeezed myself in between his cousin and a guy the first didn't recognize. Then, halfway through the meal, in front of everyone, Connor stood up to make a toast. He tapped his glass dramatically. Everyone went quiet. My heart skipped. He raised his drink, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight. It means a lot. And while we're talking about changes and growth, Jess, I think it's time we stop pretending." Pause. You and I both know this isn't working. I've been thinking a lot lately. And honestly, a girl like you should be grateful I even dated you this long. The table went silent. Then his coworker laughed, and his mother looked away. I wish I could say I stood up and threw my wine in his face. I wish I could say I had some epic comeback. But in that moment, I froze. I just sat there, staring at the man I thought I knew. I don't remember walking out of that restaurant. I remember the smell: garlic, overpriced steak, perfume. I remember someone whispering yikes as I passed. I remember my chair scraping against the floor, the awful screech of it echoing in my head. But everything else? Just static. Somehow I made it to the sidewalk without collapsing. I was shaking, not from cold, but from whatever happens when your entire body goes into emotional lockdown. I opened my purse with numb fingers, grabbed my phone, and that's when I saw it. Connor had tagged me in an Instagram post. He had tagged me. It was a photo from earlier that night, him holding a glass of whiskey, smiling like a smug little devil in that perfect navy suit. The caption? New chapter. Clean slate. Sometimes letting go is the real glow up. No regrets. Know your worth. I stared at the screen for a full 30 seconds before I could even breathe. He knew people would go looking. He wanted them to. That post wasn't for me. It was for the audience, the coworkers, the boss, the next girl he probably already had lined up. I was just the opening act to whatever narrative he was trying to sell. So I did what any sane woman would do. I reposted it. No caption, no context, just reposted it to my story with a simple black heart emoji and left it there like a loaded gun on the table. By the time I got back to my apartment, I had 19 DMs. Most were friends asking what the hell just happened. A few "Were you okay?" texts from people I hadn't spoken to in months. But one stood out. A message from someone named Madeline R. "Hey, I know we don't know each other, but I saw that post. I've been following Connor for a while. I think you should know. He's not who he says he is." I sat on my bed, heels still on, makeup ruined, and stared at her profile picture. It was private, just a soft smile, dark curls, and a tiny gold nose ring. I replied, "What do you mean?" She responded instantly, "Are you okay if I call you? I can send screenshots too, but it's kind of a lot. Now normally I'd never give my number to a stranger, but something about her message, direct, urgent, no sugarcoating, made me feel like this wasn't random. This wasn't drama chasing. This was real. So I said yes. She called within a minute, and the first words out of her mouth were, "Jess, I dated him last year, for 3 months. While he was supposedly single and healing from a long relationship, he told me his name was Connor Daniels. And I'm guessing, that's not what you knew him as?" I nearly dropped the phone. Because no, that was not his name. He told me his name was Connor Blake. I had always joked that Connor was mysterious, the kind of guy who played things close to the chest. Now I realized that wasn't mystery, it was camouflage. Still holding my phone to my ear, I sat on my bedroom floor while Madeline told me everything. Her voice was calm, but clipped, like she'd practiced this conversation a few times in her head. She met Connor Daniels on Hinge. They dated for 3 months. He told her he was working in real estate marketing and had just left a long relationship that ended amicably. He made her feel like he was finally ready for something serious, until he ghosted her out of nowhere. But that wasn't even the part that shook me. It was when she said, "He lived in that condo building on 7th and Lenox, right?" I blinked. Wait, lived? He told me that was his friend's place, the one he house sat for on business trips. Madeline let out a bitter laugh. "Nope. That's where I saw him. That's where we—" She trailed off. "Let's just say, I've been in that place enough to know what the inside of the fridge looks like." I clutched the edge of my comforter, like it was a life raft. Connor had a whole apartment, a second life he never told me about. Meanwhile, we'd been spending most weekends at my place, because he said his building didn't allow overnight guests without notice. I thought he was being responsible. Turns out, he was just hiding the fact that I wasn't the only one. "I only found your Instagram because he tagged you tonight," Madeline continued. "But I'd seen your name pop up in his comments before. When I asked, he said you were his coworker." I wanted to scream, or throw something, or cry. But I just sat there in stunned silence while Madeline added, "I figured I'd give you the courtesy no one gave me." "I'm sorry. Don't be," I said, my voice hollow. "You just gave me my reality back." After we hung up, I stared at the ceiling, trying to make sense of everything. Connor Daniels? Connor Blake? Real estate? Marketing? Junior partner? Who the hell was this man? I did what any emotionally wounded, betrayal-fueled woman with decent Wi-Fi would do. I dug hard. I started with the email address he used when we first met. Then I searched his LinkedIn profile, which was shockingly vague. Strategic communications consultant. Passionate about digital growth. No company listed. Just a list of skills like client relations and thought leadership. It reeked of BS. His Instagram? Full of polished selfies, motivational quotes, and photos that, in hindsight, could have easily been staged. One pic from a business trip to Chicago had a hotel room in the background, but it was clearly the same place he'd once claimed was his buddy's Airbnb. He'd never even been to Chicago, had he? That's when I noticed something else. One of the photos, a rooftop shot at sunset, had a tag. A bar called the Midtown Tap. I clicked it. Buried in the tagged photos was one from 3 months ago. A group shot. A birthday party. And there was Connor, arm around some girl. A blonde in a red dress with a champagne glass in hand. They looked cozy. I checked the girl's profile. Public. Her name was Riley. Her most recent post? When he says you're his first real love finally healed. Guess who was in the photo with her? Connor, wearing the same watch he told me he'd lost 3 months ago. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. My brain was stuck in one of those ugly feedback loops where every sweet memory had a rotten core just waiting to be uncovered. That weekend in Asheville, he said it was a work retreat he brought me along for. But now I realized I paid for the cabin. I made the itinerary. He didn't even check in to the office once. Everything felt off. Every "I love you" started sounding like a script, but nothing prepared me for Riley. The girl in the red dress had nearly 4,000 Instagram followers, a grid full of iced coffee, solo brunches, and those painfully aesthetic mirror selfies. She was beautiful, no denying it, and confident, in a way that felt rehearsed, like someone who'd been burned before and learned how to play offense. I debated messaging her for hours. Would she believe me? Would she think I was the crazy ex Connor had probably warned her about? But when I went to her most recent photo, the one of her and Connor kissing on the cheek, I saw it had one like from a familiar name. Connor Daniels. He was still using that name with her. I took a deep breath and messaged her. Hi. I know this is random, but I think we need to talk. It's about Connor. 10 minutes later, she responded. Ugh, what now? Which Connor? I blinked. I replied, Connor Daniels. Or maybe Connor Blake, depending on which name he gave you. No response for a full 5 minutes. Then, I knew IT. What did he do this time? That's how I knew. She'd been waiting for the other shoe to drop. We got on the phone 20 minutes later. She didn't need convincing. She'd met Connor 6 months ago, right around the time he stopped staying at my place as often. Said he'd just gotten out of something toxic and needed someone who understood ambition. She'd never been to his apartment because it was under renovation. But he'd taken her on fancy dates, told her he worked in venture capital, even showed her photos of meetings and buildings he claimed were upcoming investments. But here's the thing, Riley worked in corporate finance. She was no fool. I asked him once where he went to school, she said. He said Midtown Business Academy. That's not a real school, Jess. I Googled it. It's a WeWork. A freaking WeWork. I nearly dropped my phone. We laughed. Not the happy kind. The kind where your soul is too bruised to cry anymore, so your body just releases the rage through sound. Riley and I spent the next 2 hours piecing together a timeline. The overlaps were wild. He told her he was in Boston the same weekend he took me to a concert and claimed it was a spontaneous surprise trip. He told me he was managing a new client portfolio while sending Riley Spotify playlists called for late nights with you. He had layers of lies, whole personalities depending on who he was trying to impress. And it got worse. When Riley mentioned she'd once tagged him in a post, but he made her take it down because of a stalker ex, I knew. That was me. He told her that I was the red flag, that I couldn't let go, and kept watching his socials. I could practically feel the room tilt. This wasn't just betrayal, this was manipulation, gaslighting. A whole performance built on fake suits, fake jobs, and just enough charm to get away with it. And the final straw? Riley casually dropped this. Wait, didn't he say he was giving a talk at that marketing conference in LA last year? My stomach flipped. I remembered that exact weekend. He told me he was away for work, said he was on a panel. Except I found the conference site, searched every single panel. His name? Not listed. But guess who was? The real Connor Blake. A clean-shaven, tech bro type, with a very real LinkedIn, and a completely different face. My ex didn't just lie. He stole someone else's identity. The first thing I did was Google Connor Blake Marketing Los Angeles. And there he was. Real smile, real panel speaker bio, real LinkedIn full of endorsements from actual colleagues and clients, and zero resemblance to my ex. It was like staring into a distorted funhouse mirror. The name I'd written on birthday cards, addressed Christmas gifts to, imagined one day scribbling beside mine on a lease or God help me a marriage license, belonged to someone else entirely. I'd been dating a man using a false identity. The man I knew, Connor, wasn't just a liar. He was a fraud. A full-on social chameleon who built his life by borrowing pieces from people who actually had one. I started digging deeper. I went back to his first text to me, the contact card he'd airdropped at that networking mixer 2 years ago. The email had always looked weird to me. connor.b.dkgmail.com. I never questioned it. But now I copied it into every data search tool I could find, those creepy background check sites you swear you'll never use until you have to. And that's when I found it. His real name, Daniel Keene. Age 30. Former address, a tiny studio in Ohio. No degree listed. No work history before 2019. Just one short blip, a misdemeanor for petty theft in college, and then nothing. Like he disappeared, and then reappeared as Connor Blake, or Daniels, or whoever he needed to be. My stomach turned. I was shaking. I wanted to throw my laptop across the room. But instead, I called Riley, told her what I found, and we both sat there in stunned silence. Until she said, quietly, "You know, I think we're not the only ones." And she was right. Once we had his real name, everything opened up. Within a few hours, we found 2 more women who had commented under Riley's old photos, one she hadn't noticed before. Generic stuff like, "This guy looks familiar," or, "Is that his real name?" Normally, you'd brush it off. But now, we were collecting puzzle pieces. One of them, Sarah, from Portland, replied immediately when I messaged her. And what she told me made my skin crawl. She dated Daniel. He used the name Connor Bailey then for 4 months. He said he was a freelance brand strategist, scouting potential clients on the West Coast. He stayed in her apartment most nights, borrowed her car, said his was in storage, When she broke up with him for being flaky and vague, he vanished, blocked her on everything. 2 months later, he showed up in a photo with another woman on her Explore page. Different city, different name, same damn lies. We all jumped on a Zoom call the next night. Riley, Sarah, me, and by then, 2 more women who'd come out of the woodwork. He hadn't just been dating us back to back. There was overlap, years of it. Different cities, same game. Charm, gain trust, milk attention and resources, then disappear. We were his network, his smokescreen, his credit line, and every one of us had the same look in our eyes, betrayed, humiliated, furious. I wasn't sure what to do next, but Riley said, "I'm not letting him do this to someone else," and I realized neither was I. I called a lawyer first, asked about impersonation, financial fraud, emotional damages. I was surprised to learn that while catfishing isn't technically illegal in most states, identity theft is, especially if it's used to gain access to money, housing, or personal data. And with his real name, fake job claims, and that condo lease Riley co-signed under his fake identity, we had a case. I filed a police report the next day. It felt surreal standing in front of a desk at the precinct, explaining that my boyfriend of 2 years wasn't who he said he was, that I had no idea what his real job was, that he'd used a fake identity to convince me to let him stay at my apartment, to take vacations I paid for, to co-host parties with people who never even knew him. The officer raised an eyebrow when I handed over the printouts, the LinkedIn profiles, the screenshots, the names, the women, but she didn't laugh. She nodded. She said, "You're not the first." When I left the police station, I expected to feel relieved, lighter, like I'd finally taken back control. But instead, I sat in my car and stared at the steering wheel like it might suddenly give me answers. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from pure, concentrated rage. It wasn't just the lies. It was how easy it had been for him to pull them off, and how long it took me to see it. 2 hours later, I got a text from Riley. He just texted me. Wants to meet for coffee. Says he has something to confess. Should I go? My gut twisted. At first, I wanted to scream no. This man didn't deserve one more second of her time. Or mine. But then I paused. What if he slips? What if he says something incriminating? What if, for once, we got the upper hand? So I said, yes, but not alone. The next day, Riley met up with him at a busy coffee shop downtown, one with great lighting and even better security cameras. She wore sunglasses and tied her hair up. I sat at a table across the cafe, hoodie up, pretending to write in a journal. Sarah was outside, pretending to be on a call. We had eyes everywhere. Daniel walked in wearing the same smug face I'd fallen for 2 years ago. But this time, all I saw was a mask. He hugged Riley like nothing had happened. No apology, no shame, just fake warmth, and that voice soothing, calculated, the kind that makes you think you're the crazy one. The moment they sat, Riley hit record on her phone in her coat pocket. He didn't even notice, and within 5 minutes the floodgates opened. He launched into this monologue, how things had gotten out of hand, how he lost track of what he was trying to build, how he didn't mean to hurt anyone. He claimed he was just trying to reinvent himself and had to keep up the act once people started believing in him. But then, it got darker. He admitted that he had multiple identities, that he rotated through them depending on the circle, that he wasn't sure which one was the real him anymore. Like he was the victim of some Shakespearean tragedy, instead of the walking red flag factory we knew him to be. Riley kept her cool, nodded, asked questions, until he said, "I only lied to protect the life I was building with you." That's when she stood up, quietly said, "You lied to everyone, Daniel," and walked out. I followed seconds later, but not before watching his expression crumble as he realized she wasn't falling for it this time. That he didn't have control, that the narrative he spun had finally snapped. That night, back at my place, I couldn't sleep. I kept pacing. Something about what he'd said kept echoing in my head. I only lied to protect the life I was building. Protect it from what? And then, I remembered something. An old storage box he kept at my place. He told me not to touch it. It was just work stuff he didn't want to haul around. It had been collecting dust in the back of my closet for over a year. I dug it out, and inside, a burner phone, a stack of fake business cards, 3 different IDs. And this is the part that made my blood run cold. A tiny black camera lens hidden inside what looked like a portable phone charger. I checked the memory card. It had hours of footage, inside my apartment, the couch, the kitchen, my bedroom, all of it, from high angles, like surveillance. I dropped the camera like it burned me. This wasn't just a serial liar. This was someone who had been monitoring me, watching me without my consent, filming me in my own home. I called the detective on my case immediately, told her everything. She asked me to bring in the device first thing in the morning. And just like that, this wasn't just emotional manipulation anymore. It was a potential felony. Riley came over that night with wine, and we sat in silence for a while before she said it out loud. "How many more of us do you think there are?" I didn't answer, but I knew the truth. Probably more than we'll ever know. The next morning, I walked into the police station gripping a Ziploc bag that held the tiny spy cam like it might explode. The Detective Ruiz, who'd taken over my case, took one look at the footage I'd transferred to a USB and said, flat out, "This just changed everything." She didn't elaborate much, but told me to prepare for follow-up questions and possibly testify. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just some toxic breakup anymore. This was a case with potential criminal charges. A man who used fake names, fake jobs, fake stories, and now, secret cameras to get into women's lives and manipulate them from the inside out. But it wasn't until later that day that the scariest twist came to light. I was folding laundry when my phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. Normally, I'd let it go to voicemail, but something told me to answer. A gruff voice greeted me. "Hi. Are you Jess? Sorry if this is weird. My name's Pete. I used to be Daniel Keene's landlord back when he lived in Cincinnati. Got your number from someone on Instagram? I think her name was Sarah? Said you'd want to hear from me." And oh, I did. Pete told me he'd seen the Instagram stories that Sarah and Riley had started sharing cautiously worded warnings about Connor Blake and his trail of deceit. Apparently, the photos we'd posted had jogged Pete's memory. I remember him because he left in the middle of the night. No notice. Owed 2 months' rent. But here's the thing, he left behind a storage unit key. I've been holding on to it ever since. Storage unit? Pete agreed to meet with Detective Ruiz and me at the unit that afternoon. It was in one of those creepy, industrial-looking complexes just outside the city. Gated, cold, reeking of oil and old cardboard. When the roll-up door creaked open, I half expected it to be empty. It wasn't. Inside was a time capsule. A twisted museum of every identity Daniel Keene had ever worn. Boxes labeled Connor D and Blake C. Dozens of printed resumes. Same format. Different names. Business cards. Expired burner phones. Old wallets. A duffel bag with 6 IDs inside. And then we found the notebooks, spiral-bound, handwritten, with titles like Target, High Income Low Suspicion, New Entry, NYC Plan Timeline Adjustments. Jess. My hands were shaking as I read my name. There were entries, notes about me, things like, likes to feel needed, keep compliments casual but consistent, prefers experience over luxury, appeal to authenticity. I thought I was going to be sick. He had studied me, like a project, a performance, and I was just another act in his little one-man theater of lies. Detective Ruiz scanned each page. Her face didn't change, but I saw the way her fingers tightened around the notebook edges. "This isn't just a con artist," she said. "This is someone who collects people." It was like Daniel was addicted, not to love or sex or even money, but to control, to curating personas, living inside them for just long enough to fool people into giving him their trust, their homes, their bodies, their lives, and then moving on. The last entry was dated just 2 weeks before his birthday dinner. It read, "Time to transition. Jess sensing too much. Riley good fallback. Backup plan in Miami if both fail. Focus. Rebuild narrative before exposure. Backup plan in Miami." What the hell does that even mean? Ruiz photographed everything, bagged up the notebooks, logged the phones, and before I knew it, the unit was locked, sealed, and evidence. But I left there shaking with one thought spinning around in my head. He was already planning to leave me. That dinner where he humiliated me in front of everyone made me feel like the problem wasn't impulsive, it was scheduled. He was done with me. Just wanted one last dramatic exit before he moved on. A week after we found the storage unit, things moved fast. Detective Ruiz filed a formal request for a subpoena, one that would let her access Daniel's financials, his burner phone activity, and most importantly, any payments tied to that hidden camera he left in my apartment. But before anything could be served, Daniel disappeared, vanished, phone off, socials deleted. The Airbnb he'd been crashing at under yet another fake name cleared out. His boss? Well, the guy he claimed was his boss at that co-working space he occasionally posted selfies in had never even heard of him. I wasn't surprised. Angry? Yes. Scared? Kind of. But surprised? Not anymore. Because this man had run before. And now he was doing it again, just with more people watching. But what shook me wasn't his escape. It was what Sarah found the following night. She messaged Riley and me in our group chat. Sarah, guys, I think I figured out why he was filming us. It wasn't just for control. It was content. I called her immediately. Sarah had been digging through one of the old burner phones recovered from the storage unit. She managed to charge it up and bypass the passcode using some sketchy tech her ex-boyfriend, a hacker for hire type, apparently helped her with. What she found? Video files. But not just raw footage. Edited clips with intros, captions, voiceover audio files, like someone was preparing episodes of something. Most were titled, generically, Modern Dating, EP1, The Emotional Investor, EP2, Love Bomb Bail, EP3, Catch Release Method. And they weren't just about me, or Riley, or Sarah. He'd documented every woman, every manipulation, as if it were some sick social experiment. He wasn't just living a double life, he was archiving it. Like he planned to sell it. Sarah even found a draft email saved in the Notes app. It was a pitch, y'all. An actual pitch to a relationship coaching YouTube channel. It read, Series concept, The Psychology of Pull Dating Without Attachment. Anonymous case studies based on real interactions. Footage provided for analysis. This isn't dating, it's data. This isn't dating, it's data. I've never felt so viscerally disgusted in my life. This man had filmed me making coffee in my pajamas, had kissed my forehead while I dozed off on the couch, had told me he loved me while planning to edit my grief and confusion into a 5-minute segment for clout. And he thought he could frame it as research. We immediately sent everything to Detective Ruiz. She confirmed it was enough to push forward with a digital evidence warrant and possibly federal charges if any of the footage had been shared or monetized. But the damage was done. Every memory I thought I had of our relationship now felt like a scene from a show I didn't know I'd signed up for. I kept asking myself, did I ever really know him? Or was I just the next episode all along? And worst of all, we still didn't know where he was. The tip came from a burner Instagram account. No profile photo, no followers, no posts. Just a DM that said, check First Union Bank. He's using the name Ryan D. Kell, Miami branch. At first, we thought it was a troll. We'd gotten plenty of those since the story started circulating on TikTok, people speculating, accusing, even joking about it. But this one felt different, so we passed it straight to Detective Ruiz. 3 hours later, I got a call from her personal line. We have movement. Turns out, Ryan D. Kell wasn't just a random alias. It was one of the names Daniel had used to set up a small business account linked to a Florida LLC registered to consulting services. It had received multiple wire transfers in the past 2 months. Ruiz got a location ping from one of the transactions, a small cafe in Miami Beach. And by some miracle, or maybe karma just finally catching up, Daniel had used a card connected to that account just the day before. We weren't the only ones closing in. His sister found us next. Riley had messaged every Keen she could find on Facebook, just hoping for a miracle. One of them, Madison Keen, replied a few days later. She'd been estranged from her brother for years, but when she saw the story, she recognized him instantly. Madison told us Daniel had always been a little off, that he'd changed identities more times than she could count, that their parents had tried to get him help after he was caught forging academic records in college, but he refused. He doesn't think he's lying, she told me on the phone. He thinks he's performing. And if you react badly, that's your fault for breaking character. It made my blood run cold. But it also made something click. I remembered something he once said, offhand, late at night while we were lying in bed. I should start a podcast. People would eat me up if I told them what dating's really like. At the time, I thought he was being dramatic. Now I realized it wasn't a joke. Because in that same voice memo folder Sarah found, there were audio recordings, hours of them. And buried among those files, one labeled Jess' final monologue. I almost didn't listen, but I did. His voice was calm, cold, almost smug. Jess was the soft one. She wanted the fairy tale so bad, she never noticed the strings. I could have stayed longer, played it out. But I was bored. And boredom's the real killer. She'll cry, of course, but give it a few months, and she'll spin it into some growth story. They always do. I didn't cry. I didn't even flinch. I forwarded the file to Detective Ruiz, then deleted it off my phone. 2 days later, on a humid Thursday morning, I got the call. He's in custody. Miami PD picked him up at a co-working space registered under his fake LLC. He had 3 phones, a fake passport, and a suitcase packed with burner IDs. He's being extradited back here. I sat on my bed, hands in my lap, and let out a single breath I felt like I'd been holding for months. He was finally done. No more aliases, no more scripts, no more watching us like we were characters in a story he could control. When they arrested him, the officers said he didn't resist. He just shrugged and said, "Guess it was bound to happen eventually." Yeah, it was. Because the thing about people like Daniel, they underestimate women like me. We may fall hard, we may hurt quietly, but we don't stay broken. We rebuild, we warn others, we fight back. And now, he's the one being studied, booked, processed, unmasked, not a mastermind, not a mystery, just a con man who finally ran out of characters to play.